Well, hi, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here in my shop on June 28th. Another beautiful day, sun shining, air is cool. Here I am in my shop, so I want to make this as quick as I can. I'm going to focus on the most recent issue that's come up with this receiver. As it turns out, if you put a left and right channel, a left channel and a right channel signal into the tape or the phono, one channel is all muffled coming out of the speaker. So I did some localizing of the problem yesterday, and we're going to start by looking at the schematic and identifying exactly where I need to test to get more information about what's going wrong with this radio. So let's go on the schematic here. So what I found is when you play the radio, which is a mono type signal, the radio works perfectly in both speakers. Everything is fine. It's only when you try to put in a stereo signal from the tape or the phono that this problem occurs. So here's the tape input. So if we put an input here, one channel is muffled. You can see the input line go up here. This switch would be closed and off it would go. And the same thing's happening down here in this area. The switch would be closed and the signal would go off. What I noticed yesterday was going backwards. There's a capacitor and then there's the plate circuit for the amplifier ahead. That is a little odd, isn't it? That in fact when you switch, so tape, yeah, I think I noticed this yesterday. It looks like tape and record player are both on together at the same time. They're just anticipating, you know, maybe it's set this way. I'm not going to look too closely at it, so you can record a record on your tape player or something like that is going on. How would that happen? Okay, I just said I wasn't going to look at that. Here we are. The signal here can work its way back out to the tape recorder. Not so sure about that, but I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, the fact is that one of the most suspicious components is this capacitor. This is a great place to go testing. I need to find this capacitor, listen to the signal on either side of it. And I'm using the tape input right now, so I really shouldn't hear much, I suppose, if I listen back this way. It's a stereo with two channels, so it's really a difference between the way the two channels are working that's what I'm really after. Okay, I'm going to find these capacitors, C44 and where'd it go? C144, right, 44 and 144. Okay, I'm going to hunt them down in the radio. Okay, the tube involved is the ECC83 tube. That's this one. It has a shield around it, I guess because this is basically the amplifier for the phono, the very, very weak phono signal that's coming in. It's not so weak, you know, it's coming from a ceramic cartridge, but in any case, this is where the tube is, so assumably the capacitor that we're after is right under here. Let's take a look. That's better. Okay. Right under there. Oh my gosh. I see two replaced capacitors. Uh-oh. Oh, two replaced capacitors. Did I boob something up here? It's quite possible. It's very, very possible. Okay, so I'm going to inspect this area, verify these two capacitors are connected correctly. Goodness knows how I'm going to do that. And we'll carry on. I'll bet you I made a mistake with those. Okay, those two capacitors should be connected to pins number 1 and number 6. Let's start with this capacitor. And this is pin number 1, and there's the connection right there. see anything odd about it. So then we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 2 here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this capacitor, it should be connected to 6, which it surely is. Are there any shorts in there? I don't think so. On the other end of the capacitors, it should be connected to a shielded cable. You can see down here, probably hard to see on camera, but there is a shielded cable. And the there's a strand hanging loose here. So I believe that's the ground shield not connected. Let's look at this one here. Yeah, here, well, it is connected. You can see the capacitor tying to the center conductor on the shielded wire, a shield going to a ground terminal. So now does that shield wire get shorted in there somehow? Let's look closer and see what we can see here. Well, that's not a very good solder joint there, is it? Where I've soldered this wire. That's not very good. That could be a problem. Appears to be okay to me. This looks fine. Not the greatest solder job, but can't imagine that's ineffective. Okay, there's the shielded wire. You see the shield's been pulled back and brought over to a terminal. Looks like it's actually been extended over to this terminal. And the other one, yeah, you can see the shield pulls back and goes to that terminal. What's that wire that's sticking up there? I don't know. Could it be they ran, just like over here, they have a wire. Maybe this was their practice. There's a wire stuffed inside that, and then the wire protrudes out the end here to make the connection. Maybe this is a technique they use, and so they would have a wire inside the braid, and it looks like the end of it is just protruding here. Looks like a green wire that's cut? No, it's what's it doing down there? I don't think it's cut. I think it's, I have some trouble seeing it. I don't know, it looks like a sleeve over top of it. Again, I think so maybe this solder joint has done the trick or caused the problem. Now, which way is the signal going? Signal's coming, when you're using phono, the signal's coming out of this tube plate through the capacitor and onwards. When you're using tape, the signal should not be affected. Oh, if this was open, it wouldn't matter on tape. Well, let's do what I had said it would do. Get a signal tracer going, and we'll listen to it. Now I know where the capacitor is. Okay, let's switch it on, and I have my radio over here for the noise source. So we got an FM hiss going in. I'm not sure these are the right connections here. We'll sort it out. Can't get at the volume control too easily. Here we go. Hopefully the volume is... I hope I can control the volume from my little radio over here. Go. Sounds like both channels. Sounds like what? Wait a minute, how did that just happen? Well, you know what? This is switched to AM radio. That's why this is going to fall right in the back there of the radio. That's not good. I don't want that to happen. Need some kind of a block to put in here. Let me do this. There. Okay, somehow I've got to push a button on this. This is not working out well. Okay, I have to shut it off because there's too much happening here. Take your time. Right. Okay, well, we heard the AM working out of both channels fine, so that reaffirms that. Let's take this back up. Okay. This is a ground. Just detangle a wire here. These are the speaker connections. Okay, there we go. Now this time we're flipped on tape. Okay, let's try it again. Oh, there's the muffled. Now, I believe I've got one of these wrong. There we are. So now we've got it coming out of two channels. That's what you should be hearing. Okay, so what we're going to do now, turn the volume down on this radio. We're going to do that. Okay, volume's down. So anything we hear is coming, it's going to be coming from a signal tracer, just right here. Let's put it on. Ground onto the chassis. And we want the signal tracer set to audio. Put a break on that. It's on audio, and you can certainly hear it. You can see my hand on the volume control here. Okay, so we're looking for the hiss. So we'll go on, this is the input to this capacitor. Yes. This is the input to the other capacitor. Just be sure. Should be pin 6, 9, 8, 7. This one. Oh. So this is 1, it will sound the same. I turned the volume down, that's why. Oop. So I'm touching a plate circuit with this, and that's why the big pop, because there's a big DC voltage there. So for a moment, we get a loud pop. Now this other channel sounds exactly the same. Okay, now the other side of the capacitor sounds the same. Other side of this capacitor sounds the same. Hey, wait a minute, this isn't possible. This is not possible. Sounds the same on either side of the capacitor. Okay, we're just going to leave that like that. We're going to take a look at the schematic again. So what I've done is I've tested either side of this capacitor, here and here, and found the signal is fine. These switches, it's a bit of a, it's not easy to figure out the switch terminals and all that kind of stuff. Now there is a shielded wire that can be traced fairly easily. Two shielded wires meeting at this point. Perhaps I can spot that in the switch. Oh my god, could it be the switch? Now I've switched this a few times and it's consistently bad. If the switch was problematic, probably it would have been intermittent. I would have had some indication that the switch itself was not working properly. How can a switch cause muffledness? But how does this work then? You get a muffled result. Well, either side of the capacitor is kind of interesting too, because you really shouldn't find the signal on. It doesn't matter if it's on the plate side here, because the idea is I'm feeding it into the tape, which is coming up here. What's happening back here should be inconsequential. So what's happened here is the fact that it sounds the same on either side kind of just says these capacitors are fine. And there's no surprise in that. We got to move on. We got to move on to something else. Here's another. So where's the signal go exactly? It's got to get to this grid through the volume control. It gets into the top of the volume control. So it must be passing through all this schmozzle here. Oh my gosh, look at that. Where's a German engineer when you need one? Come here and explain all this to me, please. Well, we got a let's say 16 megohms, is that what that means? 16 megohm capacitor. What is this, some kind of an adjustment here? Like a balance control, but internally, somewhere inside here? A one-time balance adjustment after, that doesn't make sense. The same deal here. There's a switch here. Well, okay, regardless of all that, to get the signal here, you've got to get through this capacitor, a volume control, all this stuff on the back. Man, anyway, this could cause problems too. We need to listen to the top of the volume control. That's probably a fairly easy place to connect. Top of the volume control, see what's getting to the volume control. That's our next waypoint. Top of the volume control. Controls. There's two of them. Okay, back we go. Top of the volume control. So the volume control is way over here. And accessing it. So, wow. Gotta do it from the top. Okay, gotta do it from the top. I'm gonna cut the power here. We'll rearrange this. Can you hear the bird chirping? It's either a bird or could be a chipmunk. Okay. Volume control's right up here, so we should be able to poke around on it a lot. Okay, power back on. Let's see if I've got any more height here. That's about. Okay, while we're waiting for that to warm up, I'm going to extend the legs on my tripod here. Okay, and of course we have the volume down. Come down, come down. We have the volume down right now on the actual amplifier. We shouldn't hear anything until I touch it with my tracer. Now, can I get all the way there? Just barely. So rotate, rotate, rotate. Okay. Here's the volume control down here. Get my hand on the volume. I don't know which one's, well, the top will be one end or the other. Let's just check this. One end or the other. So there's a shielded cable coming up on this end here. Wow, there's all kinds of components in here. Oh, that's tricky. Very tricky. Too tricky for me. This is one channel. Sounds normal. Now the other. Wait, this doesn't have a very long wire on it. Sounds normal coming into the volume control. Okay, coming out of the volume control will be these. Of course, the volume control's down now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the speakers. So we'll run without the speakers going, and then I can turn the volume up a little bit. Okay, now what do we hear on the out on the slider? Whoops. Oh, sorry about that. I just elbowed a microphone. I apologize. Sounds normal. Come on. Okay, we're getting into a situation here where I've got conflicting observations now. So coming out of the volume control, it sounds fine. Quick to the schematic. Somehow I thought this would be easier. So now we're at this point. There's a capacitor right there. We need to test pin number 1 on what tube? Oh, this is the pin number 1 on the 2 output tubes. So now we're right down to what's getting to the output tubes. Pin number 1 on each of the 2 output tubes. I did swap the tubes and it didn't make any difference. So the problem's not going to lie in the tubes. Well, we just have to keep going here. So I've got to turn. I've got to go back to the camera here. So we're going to want to get at the pins on these 2 tubes. Scaldingly hot tubes. Shut it off again. Tip it up. I'm so surprised. Why is this? This isn't making sense. Wait a minute, just hang on a second here. How can this happen? Because if you have a good signal at the volume control, then that means the radio and the tape should sound the same. If there's a problem, it should show up with the radio too at this point. Let's carry on. Okay, it's not adding up in my poor little head. this up. Okay. Make this a little safer up here. Doesn't seem much safer, does it? Let's do this. I can't keep an eye on everything at once, so. That's a little better. Talking about internal adjustments. There's one right there. That would look like some kind of balance thing. Actually, no, it's not. I can tell because of the way they've got 2 of the 3 pins soldered together here. Well, here's another unusual adjustment right here. What are you doing? So we're going to look at the pins on the output tube. We're going to listen to them. Good grief. Pins 1. Now, are these 2 tubes in exactly the same way? Is pin 1 in the same place? I often do that. In this case, I don't think so. Very hard to see in the camera because of the shiny metal, but it's very hard to see with the eyeballs too. Okay, so I'm looking for the gap. Looks like it's right here. And it's definitely right here. So they're not. So pin 1 is up here. Pin 1 is up here. You can see the 2 resistors. Excellent. So pin 1 tells us what's reaching the output tube. Here we go. Power on. Speaker's not connected. That's fine. That's fine. Volume, I can't remember what it is with the volume. Volume should be turned up a little bit. Let's check by momentarily connecting a speaker. No, I don't think there's any volume. Okay, I'm going to try to work the volume control here. Yes, Mr. Camera, you have to get out of the way for a moment. So the radio's sitting right on the volume control right now. Big ugly hum. Situation getting worse. That's one channel you're hearing. That's supposed to be a hiss. And the other channel, let's just listen to it. There, that's what you're supposed to hear. Oop. Just grounding the speaker to turn it on. So you hear the rumble. It's real. The rumble is real. And we want to try to get my tracer all the way over there. Pin number 1. Pin number 1 on the first tube is here. This might make sound out of all kinds of things first. That sounds like the muffle. And now pin number 1 over here, down here, right here. Test not valid. Need to turn up the volume higher. Turn up the volume. Okay, now the volume's way up. Well, it's up. Checking with the other speaker. How can this be happening out here? because when the radio's on, the proper signal gets all the way out here. I'm past the point where there could be a problem. Let's carry on. Going back to pin number 1 on the first tube. It's here. Okay, now you can't hear it on my little tracer because the volume's right down. And then this one. Oh, that's the Hummer. So we have it. Oh, what happened there? Wrong pin. Sounds exactly the same. Is this really my radio signal? So I'm gonna adjust the radio volume here and see if I really have this. Yep. The hum is coming from my little radio over here. It's kind of weird because it's running on batteries. So that's what we hear there. Exactly the same. Okay, something weird going on now. For this to be like this, then the same problem should appear when listening to the AM signal. What is happening? What is happening here? Something to do with these I soldered in? Don't think so. Interestingly enough, I don't need to use this to feed the signal. I could be using this. Done. Okay, lots of noises in here. Why nothing out of this one? Should be no different than plugging it in here. Which one was it? It's the black one. Where'd the other channel go? What's happened? What am I up to? What's happened to me here? I've lost control of the whole situation. Why? You know, I know why I'm not hearing the other channel. I have the speaker hooked up, for crying out loud. Day. Get back to this. So, black's the Hummer. Red's the goodie. Hummer. Goodie. Okay, so it's not these chords. These chords are doing the same thing as that. Unless, how could it be? I'm basically hooking up 4 open wires. Unless I did some kind of weird soldering thing up there and caused a muffling because of that. Certainly I'm reaching for it now. Well, I gotta stop and think about this because I've got conflicting results. Conflicting results. How could that be? Yeah, I need to stop for a bit. Okay, I'm repeating the signal tracer test here. Once again, so speakers are unplugged, volume is turned up, your input's fairly high. Pin number 1 here. Pin number 1 over here. What? Okay, let me leave the volume the same, so it's going to be a little poppy when I do this. A lot of hits coming right out of my... What's with that? That's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know what it is. But it's interesting. Is that the signal? Turn down the radio, turn up the radio. I don't even know where I'm testing. Never tried this. I'm just touching the body of the capacitors. It's a whole new testing regime here. What's going on there? So this capacitor, I don't know if you can see it, all these are white on the ends. This one's black on the ends. What happened? I guess that's normal. Here's another one. Oh. I don't know where that noise comes from. This is really interesting. Oh, that's not so interesting. Come on, Jim. I'm using my left hand, that's the problem. Okay, back to the right hand. Oh. Okay. Enough of that. Those are resistors there, I was fooling with. That was a ground. What is the hiss? So is the hiss the volume over here? Let me turn the volume down. It is. Yes, I found that before. You can't see what I'm doing. I'm turning the volume up and down on my little radio. So the input. This is really interesting. It's a whole new testing regime. I'm trying to see a pattern in these 4 capacitors. I really can't. Okay, that's very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. I mean, I'm using this on audio, but you can switch this to RF. And then this very much is an antenna. Then you should be able to do something similar with it. It's quite interesting. But it's not helping me right now. Back to where I'm at. Where am I at? So I discovered that there's a variation on the grid circuits of the 2 preamp part of the 2 output tubes. And that so I'm going to want to track back. It's not too far back. We'll go back. Let's go back to the volume controls. Can't be accessed from down here. Okay, what else can I do while it's up like this that I haven't already done? I mean, I've been way back here. Back here they were the same. Same. Are they the same? Let's find out here. Yes, I'm sure they are. There's a ton of volume here. Why so much here and so little out there? That's one. And the other right here. Exactly the same. Lots of volume because my radio's turned up. Okay, adjusting the radio volume, the input volume. Yeah. So then it runs, the signal then runs on two shielded wires. You can see them right here. Well, you can't. See them. Right here, going through a hole, heading topside. Probably, well, I don't know. Probably going into the push button switches. Yeah. Push button switches. Okay, that's a bit of a long shot, but no. Yeah. Good. No. Thoughts are racing through my head. Let's look at the schematic. Maybe that'll settle me down a little bit. So what I'm finding is the problem is apparent here on one of these two channels. The problem is not apparent at the top of the volume control. Isn't that what I found? The problem is not apparent on the slider coming out. All that stands in the way is this capacitor. But once again, everything works fine in mono. Everything works fine in mono. Everything works fine from the radio. The radio signal's fed to the top of these two volume controls, just the same. And the radio operating, everything's fine. Feed a stereo signal in, and one channel is flat. It really couldn't be anything that doesn't. I don't know how to put this. Doesn't. Oh man, I don't know. It doesn't. No, just leave it there. Just leave it there, Jim. Oh my gosh. Signal injection. I think we got to switch to signal injection at this point, and stop listening and start putting in signals and seeing what happens. Okay, so I've got a signal generator running back here. It's got 4,000 hertz, I believe, is the output frequency. The output is grounded here and on this rather ungainly arrangement. So I do not want to touch this because I'm going to be clipping this probably onto the plates and stuff. He says rehearsing. Now we don't need this in here anymore. What a fantastic connector that is. Great. So we need the speakers hooked up. The other one. That's the mumbler. And that one's got it all. So we want to now eliminate the special input. And we will start by applying the signal. It's not very sensitive, is it? Here. Okay, so 4 kilohertz, pretty high. There you can hear it coming out of one channel. That's the good channel. Red one, good channel. Red one is the good. I barely hear it coming out here. White one is the bad. Red one's the good. So that, once again, proving the situation here. flip it onto radio for a moment to really absolutely prove that it works in both channels. But I've done that enough. I'm going to carry on. So we want to inject this signal now right into that grid I was just measuring. So I'm going to go pin 1 on this output tube, and right here. Why? So there. Now we can see. Now that's the bad channel producing good sound. Just for comparison, the other one is here. Ooh, a lot more volume. That's an interesting observation. Back on over here. Wrong one. Much lower. This radio comes with a balance, what appears to be an external balance control, and no internal control. There'd be, and you wouldn't expect balance to. It's kind of going up and down in levels here. You know what that is? Hard for me to demonstrate, but as I'm standing here, my head occasionally is going into an area where this tone is muted here in my shop. You know, if I move my head around, I hear. That's what I'm doing. I'm moving my head around right now. Okay, so it's just it's me that's hearing a difference. You know, you don't know what I'm talking about because you're not in my shop with me, but this would work in your location too. This is why all that hocus pocus about stereo sound and the super high fidelity and a sweet sound, it's all nonsense, because it just depends where your head is in the room. Okay. You can tell I'm getting frustrated. I can tell I'm getting frustrated. Why would it be like this now? Let's go back and just double check here. Pin number 1, loud and clear. Pin number 1. Well. Oh, okay. So, but on the top of the volume control, this sounded fine. You can inject this into the volume control, but that's difficult to do right now. Inject it into way over here. Did I already do that and forget? Okay, so volume is uncontrolled here. Let me just. I think we should be okay. Okay, so that's the weak speaker. You can barely hear it. Let me knock the frequency down a little bit. It's just a little more audible. Okay, and now we'll go to the same spot on the other channel. Same spot over here. Don't hear a thing. So this again, so we found the inputted signal here is fine here. If we input our own signal over here, it doesn't make it through. Other side of this, these capacitors. I just did that test. I just did that test. So we gotta go up to the volume control again. Shoot. Okay, I've got to shut off the radio and set it up, and I'm running out of time here. I'm running out of time. Okay, we'll do this one last test. Okay, here we go. Power on. Speakers still connected. And it was something to do with where I connected this. The speakers. Because there's a bit of a complicated speaker output arrangement here. And it looks like some speakers are driven from here. This is very confusing, so I haven't sorted this out. Some are driven from here. There's a jack, a plug you plug in. But then there's 2 wires coming out of here that go down to the speakers too. So what's that? Kind of the mid-range bass stuff coming out of here, treble coming out of there? Is it possible that Is it possible that all we should hear is the bass stuff, and so the rumbly speaker is correct? Meanwhile, the one that I think is correct, the one over here, because all the sounds coming through, is because the crossover is not functioning properly. I don't know. Too much thought, too much thought. Okay, I'm going to go into the volume control right on the slider, and one channel then the other. Here we go. Okay, that's loud and clear out of that way. Now the other one. Oh, son of a gun. This is not the best arrangement. No voltages here. That's the other one, muffled. Muffled, and the hum is pronounced. Whereas this one, yeah, the hum is still there. That's the output of the volume. Output of the volume, and if I turn the volume right down, it shouldn't make any difference. I guess when you have the volume set at one extreme, this would be turned down. Maybe you're shorting this out. No, this side's. Yeah, probably that's what's happening. Just nothing significant there, but definitely inject the signal at the volume control. Hear the effect. Where do you go from here? Inject the signal at the volume control. I'm going to have to stop at this point, unfortunately. So that's where we're at. Just to clarify now, because I got a real big fog in my head on this. Inject the signal at the volume control, hear the effect. Well, how can that be then? The AM radio should do the same thing, because it simply injects the same signal at the two volume controls, as opposed to stereo. Same signal. Yeah, that's why I'm going to stop here, because that's a quandary. That's a quandary. Okay, well, thanks a lot for watching. I'm doing these things essentially live, and I'm doing what I can. I don't know everything, of course, so there could be things slipping by here I'm not catching on to. Could be making mistakes. There's all kinds of possibilities still. But pretty convincing there's something wrong with this receiver, that's for sure. Okay, well, thanks a lot for watching, and I'm off to help a friend who's working on his deck. See ya.